Hello and greetings. Greetings from Germany, Ananja Vihara. This is Ayya Phalanyani speaking. Before we start, just let's hang on a second and close the eyes and breathe in and out a bit to calm the minds down and also to wait until more people are coming in. So close your eyes or leave them open a tiny bit and breathe in and breathe out calmly. So that was not a real meditation, but it was a good bridge, I think, to wait until some more people joined. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see you. Today's topic we talked about that last week, that we would today discuss Devas and Jhanas, because I said the jhanic states that we can be in, abide in, are related to Deva worlds, that when we die in such a jhanic state or in jhana so and so, that we would be reborn in such and such a deva world. And some people mention, oh, I never heard about that. And I said, but yes, that seems to be so. And the information about this is not in one sutta. So there is not one sutta that is talking about these deva jhana relations, but they are stated in several different suttas. And some people long ago, like Bhante Jnanatiloka, for example, have assembled these worlds, these deva worlds, and have made lists. So today, very fancy lists exist with information gathered on this topic, devas and brahmas. And by the way, good afternoon also. Yes, here it's also afternoon from where I speak. Um, so maybe just a brief overview of the realms or the worlds or the deva worlds or the world, the different kind of loka is the Pali word. So loka usually is translated with the word world, but can also be abode or what else could we say? Maybe something comes to mind later. So these lokas or planes. That is the word that I was looking for. These planes are three. There is first the immaterial world, the Arupaloka. And there we find all those beings, those devas. It is said, I can't tell you for sure, but I have heard that when one dies there, meditating, when one dies meditating in the formless jhanas, then one would be reborn there. Then we have the fine material worlds that are more or less the deva worlds, and these are called rupaloka. And there are 16 subplanes or realms, so to say, where the devas abide, and you find a list of all those planes, by the way, in some of the translations of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. This is maybe not the origin of those planes and of those list of the deva realms, but you find them there in a list. So there, you when you die in one of the lesser jhanas, you would be reborn there. And then we have the sensuous world, and this is where we are. We humans, for example. There are other beings. I can share maybe with you later a diagram where we can see all those relations much better. And this is called Kamaloka. And this world consists of 11 realms. And the specific part of those realms where we are in and other beings are in is that pleasure and displeasure, or pleasure and pain, is both possible there. So that makes it a world to live in where we can practice in such a way and can understand the suffering in life in such a way that we can really find the way out. So in this Kamaloka, this sensuous world, it is most, it is best, it is the best plane, the best world to become enlightened. So now let me see if I can share those. Here's the share button. She's green, I would think. She's green. Oh dear. I should have practiced. Now, here I have it. Right. Can you see that? Is it still there when I... No. So this is... I can either see you or the chart that I want to share with you. So let me see. I would think you see that now. I can't see you anymore, and I can't. Okay, now this. Okay, I think I got it. It's a little bit small for me, but I can see you and I can see the chart also. So here on this chart, you see what I was talking about just now. In the lower part, you have the 11 planes of sensual realms. This is a chart, by the way, provided by Bantanyana Tiloka. And there are 4 lower realms of woe, of unhappiness, so to say. These are the ghosts, the asuras, animal realm, and hell realms. Then there are 7 happy sensuous planes, the 6 deva planes. You might be able to read out even better than I can. So, but in the last row of the second compartment below, you see us human beings. And then the 4 great kings, the Chatu Maharajika, the realm of the 33, that is where the god Sakka is living. Sakka is a god that that always comes to test human beings when they have some, how you say that, when they do a lion's roar, when, for example, somebody says, if I would say as a bhikkhuni, I would never ever give up my robes, then it is said Sakka would come and test me, and his seat in his deva realm would heat up, and he would come and prove if and check whether my statement was true or not. So that is the god, the highest god of the realm of the 33. Yama are the gods. It's not one god, it's several. Yamas are the gods of dead. Tusita are is a delightful plane. And then above that, rejoice in their own creations. So there are creational gods. Maybe one of those many gods that are living in that plane has created a world like this, or even this world. And but we cannot know. But since there are creational gods, why not? So others are the in control. Other gods, those beyond the gods of rejoicing in their own creations, are gods in control of others' creations. So above that, these are this, the sensuous, the kama lokas. Above that, we have the rupa loka. They are still somewhat they are still somewhat physical, and here we have what this is not Ayya Soma, this is Ayya Phalanyani, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. So here, the Brahma Lokas, there we have the relation between the jhanas and the deva world. Although they are called Brahmas, we call them also deva lokas. I don't think that I'm going with this chart now further through, but I'm going to read maybe some sutta and some parts of the suttas where you exactly find the relation of these things, so that you know that this is really not something that some people are sucking out of nowhere, but this is really mentioned in the suttas. So not so much, as I said in the beginning, in one only sutta, but some of the information that you find here in this chart is mentioned in the sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Force, and the number is 123, 123. So I stop sharing. Good. So I have two suttas for today after this brief information that I gave you already. Two suttas that are talking about deva realms in relation to jhanas. The first is the one that I just Buddha Ruchi, let me just check what you wrote. I just saw it out of the corner of my eye that you are writing something. Jita states, yes, the 31 abodes are all listed in the long discourses, but there is not the relation to the jhanas. This is why I'm not going to read out this and not referring to suttas of the Dika Nikaya. So why is Bodharuchi thinking she is opening a can of worms? Not too sure. So here it is. Can we dispense with believing in all these divisions, devils, hells, good heavens, and so can we practice effectively without believing literally in them? Yes, Buddha Ruchi, I would say so. there are people in some countries, in some walks of life, in some belief systems, for them, this connection is important. It's important for them to know that when you practice this and that, then it would have this and that outcome. And without knowing this, they would not be so diligent, for example. Or they have a strong belief in heavens and in deities and so on. And then I think it's valid to give them something like that. But we do not necessarily need to know all these realms. We do not necessarily need to believe in them. And we do not necessarily even know them all. It's just for today's topic because somebody was very interested in knowing this. So that is why I'm giving the information. But if you're not opening a can of worms when you're asking a very valid question of whether we need to believe that. And, for me, the Buddha was talking with the Devas and he was seeing them. I don't talk to them. I don't see them. Neither do I see any hell beings or ghosts or whatsoever. I can imagine that there is far more in this world that I can ever perceive, that I can ever think of, and it can exist without me taking any knowledge of it. And they're still there. And others say, I see them, I can talk to them. Good then, but I wouldn't necessarily believe in them when somebody says it, unless it's the Buddha who says it. Then I have the tendency to trust and say, okay, if he says he's talking to them, then they might be there. And one sutta that I'm referring to today is from the Majjhima Nikaya, where Anuruddha, who is a very, very trustworthy monk, was a very trustworthy monk, one of the highest monks highest developed monks. And it is said that he could see them and talk to them, beings, to the devas and to other beings. And he, Anuruddha, could see when somebody was in a jhana, when the Buddha was on his deathbed, for example. We know that from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta in the Digha Nikaya. There, the story goes that Ananda, when the Buddha was on his deathbed, was already freaking out and said, Buddha's dead, Buddha's dead. And Anuruddha said, no, he's not dead yet. He is now in this and that state of absorption. Then he said, now he's in this and that state of absorption. And then this and that state of absorption. So Anuruddha could know these things. He could see people being in the jhanas. He could exactly say somebody is sitting in that jhana. So, Ananda could not. I cannot. Other people may be able to. So, then Anuruddha was known also, and that mentioned by the Buddha, that he could also see and talk to those devas. Whether these are really visible beings that only we are not able to perceive, or if that are realms that and planes and abodes that really exist and we go there, I would say that belongs to those questions that we shouldn't necessarily ponder too much about, on, ponder over, because the pondering over that topic doesn't lead us in any meditative state, nor does it lead us to nibbana. But the sitting in jhanas and the practice of those meditative states, that of course is bringing us closer to nibbana. So that is what is of importance for us. And in the sutta, where Anuruddha speaks to a lay person about the connection between the jhanas and the deva realms, is very, very interesting, also in connection to our meditative practice. So there it's more about meditation and explaining things about that, but you can take it entirely out of that context and make it a sutta not about meditation but about devas. That you can do. You can distort all suttas if you want. So here first, the Book of Force of 4 in the Anguttara Nikaya, number 123, Difference, it's called. I'm just going to read parts of it. Otherwise, I think it's getting too long. So, here, bhikkhus, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, some person enters and dwells in the first jhana, which consists of rapture and pleasure, born of seclusion, accompanied by thought and examination. He relishes it, desires it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often dwells in it, and has not lost it, when he dies, he is reborn in companionships with the devas of Brahma's company. The lifespan of the devas of Brahma's company is an aeon. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those devas, he goes either to hell or to the animal realm or to the sphere of afflicted spirits. But the Blessed One's disciple remains there all his life. When he has completed the entire lifespan of those deva, he attains final nibbana in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there's a future destination and rebirth. So this is out of this book, translation from the Pali in the Book of Fourth, number 123. And this is what the Buddha says to the bhikkhus. And I would think that this is really like, you know, an incentive. Sometimes the Buddha, there are suttas where the Buddha talks about hell realms and of torture, I don't know, ways to torture people, or not how he would torture people, but what ways of torturing people for kings were available at that time of the Buddha. And that was horrible. But there are 2 or 3 suttas where really in detail it's stated, though this and that can happen. So this was for some people in that moment skillful means to make them understand you can't continue with your ways of behavior. You must practice, otherwise it might go bad. So this is for people who always practice but maybe are not diligent enough or not putting enough vidya. So they need a little incentive. They need something, you know, that makes them think, oh yes, I would want to die. If I have to die, I want to. So, or if I want to die, if I have to die unenlightened, I would wish to die at least in the deva world. So that could be something as really like something that the Buddha meant to give them a good reason to practice those jhanas and to go into meditative states and put a little bit more emphasis on the practice. So virya, so to say. Here, if you want to read that sutta maybe later entirely, that would be there it is stated again, some person with a subsiding of thought and examination, one enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal placidity and unification of mind, and consists of rapture and pleasure born of concentration, with thought and examination. He relishes it, desires it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focuses on it, often dwells in it, and has not lost it, if he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the devas of streaming radiance. The lifespan of the devas of streaming radiance is 2 eons. And then again, some person with a fading away as well of rapture dwells equanimous and mindful and clearly comprehending the experiences, pleasure with the body. He experiences and dwells, he enters and dwells in the 3rd jhana, of which the noble ones declare he is equanimous, mindful, one who dwells happily. He relishes it, desires it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often dwells in it, one has not lost it. When he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the Devas of refulgent glory. And then the same explanation about the fourth jhana, and where if he is firm in it, focuses on it, and often dwells in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the devas of great fruit. So that is, as I think, the incentive. For me, it worked actually. When my teacher said, "Oh, you continue practicing even when you're not enlightened when you practice, but when you die meditating, you could go to a deva realm." Even I'm not a believer in any gods, not of God nor any gods, but that was kind of really better than nothing. So to say, so that it gave something to me, some good reason to practice. And now to the next sutta that I have for you here. It is Majjhima Nikaya, number 127. I'm abbreviating it a little bit in the beginning. So there is that Carpenter Panchakanda. He is a very known person. This is not the only sutta where he's mentioned. He was a firm believer and follower of the Buddha. And he also loved the Venerable Anuruddha a lot. And he invited him to come in the early morning with 4 bhikkhus for a meal. And then he asked questions, or he asked a question after the meal. And this is where I'm setting in with my reading. And also, this is a sutta. You can just skip it and say, well, this is about devas, and this is about, I don't believe that. But actually, it's about meditation more than about any devas or so. Here, then, when the Venerable Anuruddha had eaten and had put his bowl aside, the carpenter Panchakanga took a low seat, sat down on one side, and said to the Venerable Anuruddha, "Here, Venerable Sir, elder bhikkhus have come to me and said, 'Householder, develop immeasurable deliverance of mind.' And some other elders have said, 'Householder, develop the exalted deliverance of mind.' Venerable Sir, the immeasurable deliverance of mind and the exalted deliverance of mind, are these states different in meaning and different in name, or are they one in meaning and only different in name? Explain it as you see it, householder. Afterwards, it will be cleared up for you." Venerable Sir, I think thus: the immeasurable deliverance of mind and the exalted deliverance of mind, these states are one in meaning and only different in name. Householder, the immeasurable deliverance of mind and the exalted deliverance of mind, these states are different in meaning and different in name. And it should be understood as follows: how these states are different in meaning and different in name. What, householder, is the immeasurable deliverance of mind? Here, a bhikkhu abides, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above, below, around, and everywhere. And to all, as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued in loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with altruistic joy. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, without ill will. This is called the immeasurable deliverance of mind. And what, householder, is the exalted deliverance of mind? Here, a bhikkhu abides resolved upon an era, the size of the root of a tree, pervading it as exalted. This is called the exalted deliverance of mind. Here, a bhikkhu abides resolved upon an area the size of the roots of 2 or 3 trees, pervading it as exalted. This too is called the exalted deliverance of mind. Here, a bhikkhu abides resolved upon an area the size of a village, pervading it as exalted. An area of the size of 2 or 3 villages, an area the size of 1 major kingdom, an area the size of 2 or 3 major kingdoms, an area the size of the earth, bounded by the ocean, pervading it as exalted. This too is called the exalted deliverance of mind. It is in this way, householder, that it can be understood how these states are different in meaning and different in name. There are, householder, these 4 kinds of reappearance in future states of being. What for? Here, someone abides resolved upon and pervading limited radiance. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the gods of limited radiance. Here someone abides resolved upon and pervading immeasurable radiance. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the gods of immeasurable radiance. Here, someone abides resolved upon and pervading defiled radiance. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the gods of defiled radiance. Here someone abides resolved upon and pervading pure radiance. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the gods of pure radiance. These are the 4 kinds of reappearance in a future state of being. There is an occasion, householder, when those deities assemble in one place, When they have assembled in one place, a difference, a difference in their color can be discerned, but no difference in their radiance. Just as if a man were to bring several oil lamps into a house, a difference in the flames of the lamps might be discerned, but no difference in their radiance. There is an occasion, householder, when those deities disperse from there, when they have dispersed, the difference in their colors can be discerned, and also the difference in their radiance, just as if a man were to remove those several oil lamps from that house, a difference might be discerned in the flames of the lamps, and also in the difference of their radiance. It does not occur to those deities, this life of ours is permanent, everlasting, and eternal. Yet, wherever those deities settle down, they find delight, just as when flies are being carried along on a carrying pole or on a basket, it does not occur to them, this life of ours is permanent, everlasting, and eternal. Yet, wherever those flies settle down, they find delight. When this was said, the Venerable Abhikachana said to the Venerable Anuruddha, "Good Venerable Anuruddha, yet I have something further to ask. Are all those radiant ones deities of limited radiance, or some of them deities of immeasurable radiance?" By reason of the factor responsible for rebirth, friend Kachana, some are deities of limited radiance, some deities of immeasurable radiance. Venerable Anuruddha, what is the cause and why among those deities have reappeared in a single order of gods, some are deities of limited radiance and some deities of immeasurable radiance? As to that, friend Kachana, I will ask you a question in return. Answer it as you choose. What do you think, friend Kachana? When one bhikkhu abides resolved upon an area the size of the root of the tree, pervading it as exalted, and another bhikkhu abides resolved upon the area of the size of the roots of 2 or 3 trees, pervading it as exalted, which one of these types of mental development is more exalted? The second, Venerable Sir. So I'm abbreviating here again. He goes through all that what I have read, 2 or 3 roots of trees, villages or kingdoms, and he always asks which one is bigger, which one is more exalted, or which one is more developed, and he always says the second one, so that he must in the end say that the most exalted would be a person who can develop the exalted mind in the size of the earth, bound by the oceans. This is the cause and reason, friend Kachana, why among those deities that have reappeared in the single order of gods, some are deities of limited radiance and some deities of immeasurable radiance. Good, Venerable Anuruddha, yet I have something further to ask. Are all those radiant ones deities of defiled radiance, or are some of them deities of pure radiance? By reason other factor responsible for rebirth, friend Kachana, some are deities of defiled radiance and some deities of pure radiance. Venerable Anuruddha, what is the cause and the reason why among those deities that have reappeared in the single order of gods, some are deities of defiled radiance and some deities of pure radiance? As to that, I shall give you simile, for some wise men here understand the meaning of the statement by means of a simile. Suppose an oil lamp is burning with impure oil and an impure wick because of the impurity of its oil and its wick. It burns dimly, so too. Here a bhikkhu abides resolved upon and pervading an area with a defiled radiance. His bodily inertia has not fully subsided. His sloth and torpor have not been fully eliminated. His restlessness and remorse have not been fully removed. Because of this, he meditates, as it were dimly, on the dissolution of the body after death. He reappears in the company of the gods of defiled radiance. Suppose an oil lamp is burning with pure oil and pure wick because of the purity of its oil and its wick. It does not burn dimly. So too, here a bhikkhu abides resolved upon and pervading an area with a pure radiance. His bodily inertia has fully subsided. His sloth and torpor have been fully eliminated. His restlessness and remorse have been fully removed. Because of this, he meditates, as it were, brightly on the dissolution of the body after death. He reappears in the company of the gods of pure radiance. This is the cause and reason, friend Kachana, why among those deities that have reappeared in the same order of gods, some are deities of defiled radiance and some deities of pure radiance. So, they are, in fact, speaking of meditative states and using deities as a means of to transport a meaning, I think. Oh, a few minutes left. So, do you have any questions on this? Otherwise, I would just go back to the beginning of this sutta and briefly remind you. So this part of the immeasurable deliverance, we have talked about that various times. I have read out this part, this text in length, and here I have read it abbreviated, but I have read it in length, in full length already on other occasions. And this is always the same practice of practicing the Brahma Viharas, the abodes of the gods, if you want to say so. So it is kind of a connection to the deva worlds, if you wish to say. And you can say so because the good of what you do by practicing it is the good that you develop. So the good that comes out of the practice is as good as living in a Brahma realm. And the exalted a deliverance of mind. This is one of the only places in the suttas where exactly this is stated, how it is done, so that we sit there and use kind of as a kasina, if you wish so, or as your meditative object, the Brahma Viharas. And you can use it as a tiny small point in your heart, and you can extend it, and it can become immeasurable. And in the end, it shall become immeasurable and exalted. So we sit there and practice to first develop this within us, these pure abodes. And the purer our heart is, the brighter our light shines. That is what is being said here in this sutta. So the further we get with the radiance, and the brighter we shine, makes the abodes exalted or immeasurable. And in the end, whether we go to deva realms or not, it comes all down to overcome the hindrances. And only when we overcome the hindrances, then we will be pure. Here is a question. No. Tsunmakarnya Sirpa. I don't know whether I pronounced your name correctly. No, I do not reside in Empty Cloud Monastery. I'm in Germany at Anenja Vihara. There is a question. So I'm going to that now. I guess it's like Mara, right? I don't think he is literal, but like a devil on our shoulder, whispering in our ear to do unwholesome things or against the Dhamma. So they are always off. Explain. Yes. And I think there are so many ways that we can see these things, that we can understand these things, and we don't have to bother whether somebody sees it other than us. If somebody sees it as, I want to go to the Devas and I am afraid of going to be bothered by the Maras, never mind. The important point here is that we have to overcome the hindrances, to become exalted, and to be able to practice immeasurable and exalted meditative states. That's what it's about. And all the rest is maybe interesting, but whether you see it like this or like that is really not so much of importance. And if it helps, not to believe in them, because we Westerners do have a hard time in believing things, in believe like gods and so on. So if you have a hard time believing in it, don't do it. The Buddha says you only see what you're ready to see. Ihipasiko. So there's another question. Question Brahma itself is also deluded. There is a sutta that talks about Baka Brahma. That is an important thing to say. Thank you for the reminder, Christopher. The Devas and the Brahmas, also the lower realms, any realm that we are dealing with that we can abide in, would be impermanent. So the only thing of interest for that reason, because every little thing is impermanent. Not only that, also dukkha and anatta. That is the reason why we should go for nibbana, because that's deathless. There, that is beyond all the devas and all realms and all abidings. Right? So these are interesting things. And the Buddha always talked to the people as he could, where he could get them. If he could get them with Brahmas and Devas, he caught them with Brahmas and Devas until they came to see this is not important to believe in. There's that which is beyond. That is important. And if he needed to scare them with hell realms, he did that as a skillful means. That might not be too skillful today, but if it helps, it's a valid thing to use for teaching until those people are ready to see the truth. And just imagine, oh dear, just imagine the Buddha had met Angulimala and talked about him, about hell realms or so. Angulimala, the serial killer, would never have been become an arahant, most probably, if he would have been scared that way. But the Buddha found the right way to address him so that he could become an arahant. And there is the story in the end. Last thing to say, and I think it's time to stop now. But last thing to say is there is also the story that one of the Buddha's cousins, Nanda, was about to marry, and the Buddha kind of took him to the monastery. And then Nanda also wanted to ordain and left his bride crying and with hair half done running after him. So Nanda then practiced, and after a while he wanted to go home and marry. And the Buddha cheated kind of him in seeing a burnt monkey and some heavenly nymphs, and said that Nanda could have those heavenly nymphs if he practiced. So he practiced really diligently, And in the end, he became enlightened and just let the Buddha know, I don't need the nymphs anymore. So, wise measurements to bring the people to see what they cannot see at that moment. But by that wise, it's not called measurement. Now I forgot the word, but you know what I mean. The wise. Anyway, so Buddha was wise, and that's why he knew what to do and what to say. Right. And with this, I close for today and wish you all the best. Oh. There is one last thing. I recently heard the Dhamma talk that said that the Kalama Sutta, that the Buddha said that even if we don't believe that karma and rebirth exist, it's still beneficial to believe as though they do. You do not need to believe in these, but once you see, you see. Once you know, you know. And until you know, you don't need to know because you cannot. Okay, but this is really the final for today. I wish you a very good week and hope to see you again next week, next Wednesday. We haven't got a topic for next week yet, but we'll find some. Okay. Have a good week then. Bye bye.